I think a lot of the reason that we think I've got 10 million things on my to-do list, I feel overwhelmed, where do I go? Is because we haven't thought really clearly about that question, which is at the end of this time that I have right now, what do I want the result to be? What do I want to have created? Because if you don't know what the result is that you're driving towards, it's very, very difficult to decide what is the most important thing for me to complete in order to get there. Having it all does not mean doing it all by yourself. Learning to ask for help, allowing help to come into your life, receiving that help is going to be the thing that really makes that up-leveling process so much easier, so much more joyful.
Hey there, I'm Kaylin Wood, and this is Money Matters for Moms, the show where busy moms turn overwhelm into abundance. Each week we'll talk side hustles, saving hacks, wealth tips, and some energy tips to help make it all stick. Real tools for real financial freedom. No ramen required. I'm here today with Charlotte Rooney. She's a career coach who specializes in work-life balance. So she helps give women the knowledge, tools, and support they need to build a life they love. Charlotte, I'm so glad to talk with you today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about you. How did you get interested in work-life balance?
Well, I think, unfortunately, the worst way possible. I burnt myself out. It's how I got really interested in this. So before I set up my own business, I was a humanitarian aid worker. Then I worked in the public sector. Then I was a management consultant with McKinsey. And then I scaled a startup. And you can probably notice a bit of a theme there. All of those things are really, really full on. Work-life balance was just not on my radar. I mean, my work was my life. That was it until I went too far and ended up being very unwell, very ill. I had to leave my work. I spent more than 6 months unable to work, which obviously had huge repercussions financially, psychologically, for my family, for my friends. And so I did that about halfway through my career. And then I went back to work. And I started to notice, once I was aware of the kind of the signals, I started to notice that loads of other people around me were doing the same thing. They were on that same path. Brilliant, talented women who honestly had the potential to do so much with their lives. But because, like me, they were making some really classic mistakes, they were actually totally running themselves down that line of burning out rather than being really successful. And that's just not acceptable to me. I don't think that's the kind of world I want to live in. I know that those women don't want to have that same experience that I did. And now I absolutely love having the honor and the privilege of helping other women to find their unique path, because it isn't just one path that is the right work-life balance. Each individual woman has a very different balance that's going to be right for her. And I love helping them to find what that is and how to craft their paid work as part of that holistic life.
That's beautiful, because so many people say, oh, well, the work-life balance needs to be 50-50, right? So you're giving half of your time and half of your attention to each of those. And you're saying, no, it's not necessarily true.
No, I don't think I know anybody where it's 50-50. And I think it's really important to realize that it's really flexible at different times in your life. There are times when maybe you're super excited about what's going on in your paid work and you want to give all of your time to that, apart from when you're asleep. There might be other times, say, when your kids are little and you think my paid work needs to take a back seat right now because for me, it's more important to be spending this time with my children while they're young. Equally, you might not. You might say, do you know what? The baby phase, not for me. I am much more excited once they're walking and talking and I can have a real conversation with them. And so I'm leaning into my paid work earlier and leaning out later. There's no one size fits all. And I think that idea that there is something perfect for everybody that we should all be striving for, I just wish it's an idea that we could get rid of.
And you find that when people find that correct work-life balance for themselves, that they're actually more able to create great things in their work life.
Absolutely. Because the way I see it is, the only thing that we really have a zero-sum game of is the time, right? There's 168 hours in a week. We can't make more hours in the week. But everything else that leads to you feeling fulfilled and you seeing yourself as successful, whether that's in your career, in your business, in your family life, in your relationships, all of those things, actually, we can create more of when we know how to do it. We can create more energy when we know what brings us energy. We can create more love and affection when we know what inspires that love and affection in us. We can create more passion. And so, yes, I think when we know how to turn those things on and off for ourselves, when we know what those sources of fulfillment and purpose can be, then your potential is limitless. Even in those 168 hours a week, that is fixed.
Right. And so for me, the idea of the time is kind of the sticking point because so many of us become stressed out, right? We're working so hard. And then we immediately jump from taking care of the business to taking care of the kids to spending time with the husband to all of the other things that we have on our plate. So then when we have a little time to ourselves, all of a sudden we're scrolling on social media or numbing out with Netflix, right? So what can you do about that?
It's a really good question. And I think it's important to acknowledge that this is something that we have all found ourselves doing. And for me personally, I'm not sure that the goal is to eliminate it entirely. If you are doing a million things, you're working really hard, or you're running a business, or both, working on your marriage, you've got kids, you also are maybe thinking about your own health priorities, it's possible that when you get that moment to yourself, what you genuinely really need is rest. And being able to recognize that you're tired and you need rest is really important. Because when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, we don't actually think as clearly as when we're relaxed. Physiologically, when you have those stress hormones in your body doesn't work as well and your brain doesn't work as well. It's like your prefrontal cortex, this is an exaggeration, but it almost gets shut off because your brain is kind of in fight or flight. You don't need to be sitting there wondering, what's the best way for me to move my business forward if you were being chased by a lion? You just need to run. And that's the state your brain is in. Obviously, you know that you're not in mortal danger, but your brain doesn't. And so when you're stressed and overwhelmed, it's really normal that you actually find it a lot harder to think critically and clearly about what you should do next. Sometimes you just need to recognize, I have an hour or 2 hours now that's available for me. For me to get my best work done, I need to take half an hour at the beginning to relax, whether that's scrolling or watching Netflix or going for a walk outside or eating a bowl of ice cream. Sometimes we need to bring our nervous system back down, get into that good headspace so that we can have productive time. We think, jump right in, get as much done, don't waste a second. But that's a real false economy because you're going to be doing less good work. You're not going to be bringing the best of yourself for that full hour. Whereas if you took 15, 20 minutes to relax, you would get 40 minutes of your best self. And the result of that for you is going to move your business or your plan or your life forward in so much better of a way.
I've heard so many people say, plan out all of your time so that you make sure that you're not wasting any of it. But I love that idea of give yourself some grace first and then move into planning the rest of your time out.
Yeah. And look, if planning every second of your day and all of your time works for you, then don't change it, I mean, once you find the thing that works for you, that's the thing to stick with. But for many of us, planning out every second of our time doesn't work very well. It makes us feel even more trapped, even more overwhelmed, because then we're like, oh my God, I do not have a single second to myself.
Right.
Most of us forget to plan that time for ourselves. So if you are going to plan all of your time out, then please make sure that at least one of those sections is some time for you.
I have had some success with using something called a Pomodoro app where you have a set amount of time that you're doing work and then you have a set amount of break time. So do you recommend those kind of time management systems or apps?
They can absolutely work. And again, it's about finding the one that fits for you, because for me, the Pomodoro one really doesn't suit me. I work in long, deep spates of deep work. And so if you put the Pomodoro app, it's going to alarm me and tell me to take a break when I'm right in the middle of something. And that just doesn't fit with me. But if it works for you, and that means that you get the break time, you feel focused, you feel really able to make progress on your goals, you should definitely go with it.
I have had that issue as well. You're right in the middle of the flow and things are coming and then all of a sudden, buzz, it's time for you to go get a cup of coffee. And for me, that feels sometimes, as you said, it's more of an interruption than a little gift of time for me.
And it is trial and error, of course. I think there may be certain tasks that the Pomodoro technique works really well for you for, and other tasks where you think, actually, you know what? I know I'm going to get in the flow on this one, so I'm not going to use it today. And I think that's the key thing that I would say about any and all of these techniques, is giving ourselves a little bit of grace to do it our way. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly textbook the way it says. Maybe you like to plan 60% of your time, and some of it is just left free to give you that sense of freedom, to make sure that you take breaks, to make sure that you have time for yourself. Maybe there are some tasks where Pomodoro is perfect because you don't really get into the flow with them. And so actually being reminded to take breaks is helpful because it helps to clear your mind and then you're able to focus. So I think it's about practicing, trying things for yourself, and then giving yourself permission to say, do you know what? That does work for some people. It was created by an expert, but it doesn't fit me and my life right now. So I'm going to tweak it.
I love that. And so if somebody says, well, I have a set amount of time and I want to get the absolute most done today, what would your recommendation be for them?
I would actually come back to them with a question. And that would be, what do you mean by the most done today? Because I think a lot of the reason that we feel like we don't know where to start, or we think I've got 10 million things on my to-do list, I feel overwhelmed, where do I go? Is because we haven't thought really clearly about that question, which is, at the end of this time that I have right now, whether it's a full day, 2 weeks, a year, 5 years, what do I want the result to be? What do I want to have created? What do I want to have in my hands or online or in my work? Because if you don't know what the result is that you're driving towards, it's very, very difficult to decide what is the most important thing for me to complete in order to get there. I mean, if you think about Google Maps can't take you anywhere if you don't know where you're going. And it can plan anything. It can tell you how to swim to Hawaii if you ask it. So you have to start at that place. And I think that's the question that I would definitely ask. If you are thinking, I want to make the most out of this time, what would you consider the most to be? How could you feel most accomplished at the end of that time? What would you be holding? And then you can plan backwards thinking, okay, well, to get there, I need to do this thing, and this thing. This thing is the most important piece. If I don't do that, then I can't get to the end. So I'm going to start on this one. I'm going to do this big thing. And actually, this third thing, I don't really need to do it at all to get the result that I wanted. So that's something that can come off my list right now, can relieve some of that pressure that I'm putting on myself because I've really defined what my result is.
That is really exciting because I am one of those people who sometimes says, okay, I've got the 8 things that I want to accomplish. Where do I get started?
It's really changed the way that I work, and the women that I have taught it to all say the same thing. It really takes away that sense of I'm lost and stuck, and just gives you that certainty that you know what the right thing to do is. You know what the thing to do is that's going to make the most out of the time that you have right now, because you know exactly where you're trying to get to.
And that's another piece that I love, is that certainty, because there's so much uncertainty, right? What can I do next that's going to make the biggest impact, that's going to lead me into where I want to be tomorrow or next week or whatever? And so I love that soul connection with, this is the next piece for me.
Yeah, it's incredibly freeing.
Fantastic. If you were talking with a woman who really wants to add a little bit more money to their life and up level where they are, what advice would you give her?
When you have a dream, something that you want to go to, you want to have it all: paid work that feels fulfilling, happy marriage, thriving kids, time for yourself, your health goals on track. It often feels like it's totally impossible. You think, I can't possibly juggle all of these things all together. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle that came with extra pieces in the box, and they just won't go together no matter how hard you try. And the one thing I want to say to you is, having it all does not mean doing it all by yourself. So the biggest piece of advice I would say is ask for help and learn how to accept it, which I think is the harder part for some of us, right? Because whether that's at home or in your paid work or in your business, once you've gone through this process of, I know where I want to go, I have my plan, I've really thought through everything that needs to happen, you're then going to be in a position to say, okay, here's some places where I can get help. Here's some things I could ask somebody else to do for me, which will free me up to be able to up-level my life. And I think learning to ask for help, allowing help to come into your life, receiving that help is going to be the thing that really makes that up-leveling process so much easier, so much more joyful, and full of so much more connection, because we love helping people and people love helping us. And so it's a win-win situation. So that would be my advice. Don't try and do it all yourself.
That is beautiful, especially because you're right. Giving people the gift of allowing them to give to you makes everybody's life better.
It really does. And there is scientific evidence to prove it as well.
Well, thank you so much, Charlotte. It has been a joy to talk to you.
It's my pleasure, Caitlin. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Money Matters for Moms. I hope today's episode left you inspired to take one little step forward. Check out the resources in the show notes and share this with another mom who's ready to thrive. You've got this, because abundance is easier than you might think.